A very good evening and welcome to the Eswatini TV 8 p.m. news broadcast. My name is Nondobego Nzapkelogo. Let's take a look at tonight's headlines. Members of Parliament have asked the Minister of Finance to justify the rationale of capping the 7-year period for importing used cars. Members of the House of Assembly's efforts to have the ban on the alcohol industry lifted were not successful in Parliament on Wednesday. The Minister for Tourism, Moses Vilagati, says the coronavirus has allowed Eswatini to come up with innovative ideas that are in line with encouraging domestic tourism. And now for the news in detail. Members of Parliament have asked the Minister of Finance to justify the rationale of capping the 7-year period for importing used cars. The matter was moved by the Sipofaneni Member of Parliament, Mduduzi Smelane, who has submitted that the cars will be expensive for the ordinary Liswati.
Members of the House of Assembly showed eagerness to debate the issue of the legal notice prohibiting the registration of import vehicles older than 7 years in the country. This follows a legal notice issued by government stipulating that import vehicles not older than 15 years will no longer be registered locally, but only those below 7 years. Sipofaneni Member of Parliament Mduduzi Smelane says the vehicles will now be expensive for a majority of Eswatini who buy cars not because of luxury but because they need them. He was seconded by Manzini North Member of Parliament Makford Sibanze.
Mr. Speaker, dan kutsikia unyatselwa. Nyavumi mali yakhe yakhibe khona ngolela ngikonda bekanaloka. But ngiyacela ukuthi akubule tinye tindlela hayi lokho. Nangabe kunemoto leku55,000 ngeke inyuke nga100%. The possibility ukuthi tawunyuka nga500%. Nabo ke labantu lesikakhulumela. Naba bothishela, naba bosomabhizinisi.
About 30 members of Parliament showed interest in debating the matter. However, it was moved that it be debated no further as the mover had said enough on it. There was a need for the Attorney General, Sifiso Khumalo, to clarify the powers of the House in terms of instructing the executive on what it should do.
In their oversight role, what Parliament can do, as an executive, I hambe iyobuka lenzamba. I-consideration kusiyente naku nakayithatha minister the motion, he'll then come back to the House. Cha bahlonishwa sengikwendile lo kanje. Nangabe kungasi possible, he then explains to the House ukuthi akusi possible for the following reasons.
At the time of compiling this report, Parliament was still in session. For Eswatini TV News, Temgos Mavimbela, Parliament.
The Minister for Natural Resources and Energy, Peter Bembe, says Eswatini Energy Regulatory Authority is yet to conduct research that will determine if it will be possible for Eswatini Electricity Company to have a standing charge of electricity connection fee. The minister was speaking at the House of Assembly when addressing questions regarding the EEC company.
Members of Parliament in the House of Assembly have raised concerns over the electricity connection charges by the Eswatini Electricity Company to the Minister for Natural Resources and Energy, Peter Bembe. Members of Parliament asked the Minister why the company charges Eswatini the same price when connecting electricity for the first time and reconnecting. The Members of Parliament also wanted to know from the Minister why the company doesn't install electricity lines all over the country so it can be easy for people to connect.
Yeah, that's what. You have to say quotation, SEC. What we are school, the line, they're calling it a nigger quotation, Nancy quotation. We have to answer the case in your action at all. So they are Palomira at once a case, and in another quotation.
with the same amount despite the fact that the lines are poor and
Mr. Speaker, njengoba sera wathunywa 3 years ago in the previous parliament to review the entire tariff structure including for standard charges, business lamancane, the issues around the entire tariff structure yanengapha. Ingabe ngalo end of October, vele kulesiba kwe-standard connection kuphela noma a comprehensive report ye-review yale tariff structure sa-EEC.
The Minister for Natural Resources and Energy, Peter Bembe, when responding, stated that Eswatini Energy Regulatory Authority is yet to do a research on issues of prices. Bembe says he's hopeful that all the issues concerning the electricity company will be addressed as well.
After the study kutakwateka njengoba ngishito emalungeni ukuthi sesiyakwazi ukuthi kutasipita malini kufaka ikhathi nabo lokuthi naso igrocery line sikhuluma ngendlela enjalo.
The minister is expected to deliver the report about ISERA's research next month. For Eswatini TV News, Sondomlangeni with Tembinkosi Mavimbela in Parliament.
Members of the House of Assembly's efforts to have the ban on the alcohol industry lifted were unsuccessful in Parliament on Wednesday. The motion to have this happen in 48 hours was not moved because Prime Minister Ambrose Dlamini was not in the House, and yet the motion was directed to him.
The motion to have Prime Minister Ambrose Dlamini consider setting aside the 1-month extension of the ban on the alcohol industry within 48 hours was supposed to be moved by Mhlume Member of Parliament Victor Malambe. Malambe had to move that the ban be lifted in 48 hours. This did not happen as the Premier was not in the House. Malambe was seconded by Nzingeni Member of Parliament Lutho Dlamini.
In better decision. We need to know. This is not just an easy matter. It's a serious matter. Says petition you see Parliament over the same matter. We can't be taken seriously by the public. We need some clarity.
Members of Parliament asked the Speaker of the House, Petros Mavimbela, to find means of ensuring that the Premier goes to the House. Mavimbela responded to this. At the time of compiling this report, the Premier was not in Parliament. For Eswatini TV News, Tembinkosi Mavimbela, Parliament.
The Minister for Tourism, Moses Vilagati, says the coronavirus has allowed Eswatini to come up with innovative ideas that are in line with encouraging domestic tourism. Vilagati was speaking during the Bikers Rally wrap-up edition in Stvogodvo.
The annual Swazi Rally event attracts bikers from beyond the country's borders. The 2020 Swazi Rally supported the tourism sector as bikers visited places of interest in the different parts of the country, since bikers from outside the country could not be part of the event due to the coronavirus. The Minister for Tourism, Moses Vilagati, says other countries such as Zimbabwe have emulated this kind of innovation.
Futhi kwente abantu babona ukuthi leSwatini lihle kangakanani. leSwatini lingabakhanga abantu.
This program allowed people to visit all the beautiful places that Eswatini offers. When tourists ask around Maswati, we'll be able to direct them to places that they themselves know. We want people to stay longer in Eswatini so that they can fully experience the wonder that awaits them. I'd like to commend Mr. Paiva for this campaign.
Manzini Regional Administrator Shiv Gija has applauded Swazi Rally founders for such an initiative.
So COVID-19 impacted creativity learning within Eswatini. We wouldn't have thought about a good move like Babe Paiva has come up with at the time of COVID-19 when we were saying everything is collapsing down. And in the midst of that darkness, he came up with light that, no, we can do this.
Swazi Rally co-founder Carlos Paiva stated that this year, 10,000 Malangeni was collected, which will support the Women Farmer Foundation. Paiva says they chose Women Farmer Foundation because they want to ensure that local women farmers are supported. For Eswatini TV News, Sondom Langeni with Muslim Konda in Sitfogodvo.
The Principal Secretary under the Ministry of Labour and Social Security, Tulani Mkalipi, says workers who are affected by the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic will not be able to benefit from the relief fund if they are not legally registered by their companies, which is according to guidelines provided by the government.
The money is paid to the rightful and deserving workers. We scrutinize each and every application which comes to the team, and there is actually a committee which is chaired by the PS, which comprises government representatives, representatives from workers, representatives from employers, and also ENPF is also represented, in that committee. What we look into particularly when we are processing the claims, one is that the company which is making the claim did in fact apply for the layoff and was granted, the permission for the layoff by the Office of the Commissioner of Labour. And secondly, we look into the wages register of that company to ascertain if the employees for which the company is applying for are indeed working for that company and have, prior to COVID, been working for the company, and how much were they paid, and also to ascertain if they did not actually work, in any of the period of the months during COVID. And if, for example, the workers actually have been called by the employer to work and paid, we then check as to how much was paid during that time.
The Principal Secretary in the Ministry of Education, Bertram Stewart, says the government prioritizes vocational skills and will sponsor students who are willing to further their studies. Stewart was speaking during a tour of Mhlangeni Community Learning Center in Bunya.
Mhlangeni Community Learning Center is a vocational training institution at Bunya that trains vocational skills like sewing, electrical wiring, indigenous chicken farming, welding, amongst other things. The school is still growing and has seen an enrollment of most of locals, not only the youth but even adults as well. The Principal Secretary in the Ministry of Education, Bertram Stewart, taught the place and urged students to take vocational skills seriously.
Bangaqedza ke laba bekunene bese sebayenzinza ukuthi nabafuna ukuqhubeka nokufundzela lokwakha noma lamagesi bathabe sebaya kuphi. Ngibekise nje ukuthi kunenkinga ukuthi bangaqedza la bese kumbe bayongena evoc team bagcine sebasesikoti. So ngiloko lesizama ukwenza senguhulumende ukuthi akube khona lokuthuthuka ukuthi umuntu nakafundzele etikoleni ezinjengaleti esencane la kuqalwa khona aqhubeke kube angaze ayofika esikoti nakafisile.
He says government prioritizes vocational skills and sponsors students even to college level. Sizwe Lukele, the school's coordinator, says they have seen some students getting employed and some starting their own businesses.
Bantu bakhona intombi bebede lwati ngekwakha bebede lwati ngekufaka amagesi bebede lwati ngekuthunga inyalo sebakhona konke kukwenda lokho.
The students say they have gained knowledge by being part of the school, instead standing closing.
Ngesikhathi esiningi beke imsaba gesi uthi hayi gesi yalimatana in but Na usasebenza ngayo emalanga ahamba. Uyabona ukuthi lo msebenzi awusilo olukhulu. Kuthunga ke ngifundzele okunengwe ukuthi uma ungumthungi awuthungeli ukuthi ufuna kwati konke. Wati as long usaqhubeka nekuthunga kwakho uyakwati.
According to the education policy of the Kingdom of Eswatini, government prioritizes vocational and training subjects for the out-of-school youth for some who didn't get the opportunity to be enrolled at universities and colleges in the Kingdom, because these vocational subjects also provide job opportunities for the out-of-school youth and also the source of income for them. For Eswatini TV News, I'm Kian Msibi, Mhlangeni, Epunya.
And in our international news, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa has lifted the ban on international travel with effect from the 1st of October 2020. Ramaphosa was addressing South Africans tonight.
With a move to alert level 1, we will gradually and cautiously ease restrictions on international travel. We will be allowing travel into and out of South Africa for business, leisure, and other travel with effect from the 1st of October 2020. This is subject to various containment and mitigation measures. Travel may be restricted to and from certain countries that have high infection rates. A list of those countries will be published, and it will be based on the latest scientific data that we will be able to get on those countries. Travelers will only be able to use one of the land border posts that have remained operational during the lockdown, or one of the 3 main airports: King Shaka International, OR Tambo International, and Cape Town International airports. On arrival, travelers will need to present a negative COVID-19 test results not older than 72 hours from the time of departure, from whence they will have come from. Where a traveler has not done a COVID-19 test prior to departure, they will be required to remain in mandatory
Let's take a look at our sports news. The Eswatini Athletics Association says they are not responsible for organizing training facilities for any athletes. The association's president, Zakhele Dlamini, says they only organize for national team athletes. Dlamini said this in a press conference in Mbabane.
The Eswatini Athletics Association held a press conference where, among other things, they announced that their planned national championships will continue as scheduled and that athletes will have to participate in one of the 2 preparatory games before the national championships. The association president, Zakhele Dlamini, took time to mention that the association does not organize training facilities for any athletes in the country.
Not responsible for training facilities for individual athletes, but we only take responsibility when it comes to national team athletes, and when we are preparing those athletes, if they are selected under national duty. Now, as to athlete X who trainer Gupi, we are not responsible. Each and every club, coach, official or athlete, they arrange themselves for a venue training.
Dlamini also announced that Victor Dlamini will now be the new public relations officer of the association, replacing Sihle, who was announced last year, October. Victor Dlamini, speaking after being announced, he said he wants to make athletics a well-known sport in the country.
I'm a team player. Gwami guthatha le sport ngisibeke to lenye level in as far as publicity and of course making noise is concerned. it's high time lokuthi bantu bathi lokuthi it's not about football all the time lokuthi ma ibhola i-athletic association ngicela kuthembisa lo baholi nema clubs lokuthi la sikhona khona nyalo itawuba ngulamanye ama sporting courts la khona in the country etawuhlala kukhulunywa ngawo lapho bantu bahlangene khona.
The association announced that they will be following all the regulations put in place by the government. Only the 100 meters, 200 meters, 400 meters and 1800 meters will take place, which also includes the relay and field event. Spectators will not be allowed in the venue. The race will be hosted at the Mavuso Sports Center on the 31st of October and will not exceed 2 hours. Reporting for Eswatini TV Sports News, I am Patizwe Msibi, Mbabane.
Acer Sports Academy Series defending champion Derek Namanya says his preparations for defending the title are going well, which gives him the confidence that he will be able to defend it. Namanya was speaking during one of his training sessions in Mbabane.
This coming weekend, tennis players will once again gather at the Lobamba Tennis Center for the second edition of the Acer Sports Academy Series, which carries a package of 15,000 emalangeni, where the winners will take home 5,000 emalangeni. Derek Namanya, who won the first edition after defeating Bruce Gam, says his preparations are going well.
Well, they've been going pretty well. I mean, we've been training hard since, and we've actually picked up areas that we need to work on, and it's actually coming up. We're working on like technical and tactical stuff as well, but not just only for this tournament, but for the for the long term part of preparations, like for future tournaments that we want to play actually. So it's actually been going really well.
Derek's training partner Hayden Loeffler says he's looking forward to facing him.
That's what I really want to get. Finals match against Derek. That's what we're all training for. Yeah, we haven't actually played ourselves in a normal actual match, a proper money match. So it's gonna be good to see that.
The games were postponed at the start of this month and will now be played this weekend at the tennis center in Lobamba. Reporting for Eswatini TV Sports News, I am Patizwe Msibi, Mbabane.
We've come to the end of our bulletin, but before we wrap up, let's take a quick recap of the headlines. Members of Parliament have asked the Minister of Finance to justify the rationale of capping the 7-year period for importing used cars. Members of the House of Assembly's efforts to have the ban on the alcohol industry lifted were not successful in Parliament on Wednesday. The Minister for Tourism, Moses Vilagati, says the coronavirus has allowed eMaswati to come up with innovative ideas that are in line with encouraging domestic tourism. Eswatini, that is all the news we had for you tonight. Up next is the weather forecast. Good night and God bless.
We've been drifting, lost at sea. You're so far.
Bring the family together with great specials. Like Spa Pilchards, buy any two for only 37 emalangeni. And Bokoma Wheat Bix for just $19.99.
I'll be your lighthouse and bring you back to me.
We're here for you.